Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Okay, happy Friday everybody. This episode will be a little bit shorter than usual and will largely be focused on the Chinese economy. As we know, with consumption and private sector investment down, the state has stepped in with a surge in infrastructure investment. We learned this week just how big the surge was last month in May. Yesterday, Thursday, the National Development and Reform Commission, China's powerful state planner, said it had approved 10 fixed asset investments worth 121 billion RMB, approximately $18 billion in the month of May. This is more than 6 times what was added in April in terms of value. As we saw with yesterday's economic data for May, some sectors have picked up with the opening of Shanghai, but retail sales and housing both remain very weak spots for the economy. Independent economists argue that China's economy likely contracted last month. For the first 5 months of this year, the National Development and Reform Commission has already approved projects worth a total of 654 billion yuan, more than 80% of the total approved for the entire 2021 calendar year. The NDRC will allow local governments to fund the projects by making available yet more special purpose bonds. And we will touch on government revenues shortly. Next up for the economy, unsurprisingly, China's electricity consumption continued to fall in May as restrictions and other challenges hit the industrial operations of the country. According to the National Energy Administration, NEA, electricity usage in May dropped 1.3% year-on-year, and some analysts believe the drop could have been worse. Quote, broken down by industrial sectors, power consumption in the secondary and tertiary sectors went down by 0.5% and 4.4% year-on-year respectively, while usage in the primary sector was up 6.3%. Residential consumption also declined by 2.4%. End quote. This is the second straight month of electricity consumption decline in China, with April seeing a 1.3% dip. A report by the China Electricity Council published this week showed that electricity drop was indeed driven by slowdown in coastal industrial centers. Shanghai's electricity usage was about 78% of its volume in 2021 for the first 3 weeks of May. Now moving on with the May numbers, according to official data, so it could be even worse, China's general fiscal revenue contracted an incredible 33% in the month of May versus a year earlier. A collapse in income driven primarily by the economic slowdown, as well as large-scale tax rebates to support businesses smashed during the lockdowns. We remember that the government expanded this year's 1.5 trillion yuan value-added tax refund plan by 140 billion yuan in May. According to Bloomberg's Hong Kong team, government income mainly from taxes and fees totaled 1.24 trillion yuan, $185 billion last month. Income for the first 5 months of this year was almost 9 trillion yuan, down 10.1% from the same period last year. According to a statement from the Ministry of Finance at a press event yesterday, with this hit to revenue, government spending also continued to rise in May, with general fiscal expenditure up 5.9% year-on-year to 9.9 trillion RMB. And of course, the elephant in the room is also the housing crisis and the effect that this has had on land sales. Now, quoting Bloomberg News directly, quote, with the property market showing little signs of improvement, the slump in real estate income will continue to weigh on government finances. Government revenue from selling land plunged by 28.7% year-on-year in the first 5 months of 2022. Deed taxes, which are paid when a property is bought or sold, fell 28.1% in the period. End quote. And one more thing while we're on the economy before we move on to the next story. US media reports this week that some US chip makers have expressed concerns to authorities that Chinese companies are paying above market rates to obtain chip manufacturing equipment to outpace the US in semiconductor manufacturing expansion. People's Republic of China orders for chip manufacturing equipment from overseas suppliers rose 58% in 2021, the second year in a row that China has been the product's biggest market. If you guys are enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the like button, and for anyone who wants to go the extra mile, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and crypto links are in the description below. This is a great way to help keep China Update sustainable. It's just me making these, so this is a tremendous help. As always, thank you everybody for the ongoing support. Yesterday, the Cyberspace Administration of China published a piece called, quote, "Dynamic Zero COVID is a policy of great benevolence that concerns the overall situation and the long term." End quote. This wording, policy of great benevolence, 大人政, is quoting Mao Zedong from a speech in 1953 discussing the Korean War, the last and only time People's Republic of China troops engaged in direct warfare with the United States. At the time, Mao Zedong expressed that there are two kinds of policies of benevolence. One which is concerned with the people's immediate interests, the other is concerned with their long-term interests. The latter is a policy of great benevolence, according to this formulation from Mao Zedong. The Cyberspace Administration of China, in this article published yesterday, is thus communicating several important ideas. One, zero COVID is viewed by the leadership, or is at least rhetorically claimed to be, a policy for the long-term interests of the people. Two, as such, it will remain in place. And three, the state is invoking the idea of fighting a war in pushing this policy. With residents in cities like Beijing and Shanghai exhausted after months of lockdowns and restrictions, not to mention years of disruptions, it's hard to know how effective articles like this will be for public morale. But one thing is for sure, despite how these residents may feel, zero COVID is here to stay. On this development, veteran China analyst Bill Bishop made the following observation, quote, "The idea of using Mao's framework of policies of greater or lesser benevolence should probably be worrisome to people who understand the history of how Mao used those concepts, and that they are still in use today. It may also not be a coincidence that the opening paragraph accuses the US of smear attacks on China over the dynamic zero COVID policy." End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend ahead of you. We should have a regular episode, a regularly lengthed episode tomorrow. Would love to hear what your thoughts are, particularly on the government revenue issue. This is putting tremendous strain, obviously, on the fiscal position of many local governments and the central government. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this particular issue or anything we discussed in today's video. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.